Atlantis has been one of the world's biggest mysteries for over 2,000 years. It was first described by Plato in a story where he tells it in the point of view of Critias. Now, this Critias says that he heard the story of Atlantis from his grandfather, who had heard it from Solon, who was an Athenian statesman who lived 300 years before Plato's time. And Solon claimed that he had learned it from an Egyptian priest who said it happened 9,000 years before that. Atlantis was an extremely imperialistic state, and that was quite unheard of for an island nation to kind of go and colonize the mainland. They were the Britain before Britain. And Plato describes Atlantis as an island larger than Libya and Anatolia put together, located in the Atlantic Ocean, just beyond the Pillars of Hercules. And most people interpret the Pillars of Hercules as the Strait of Gibraltar, which is the exit from the Mediterranean Sea into the Atlantic Ocean, in between the coast of Africa and Portugal and Spain. With so much time passing from the time that Atlantis sunk into the ocean up until Plato recorded it, many of the details are fuzzy in general. The validity of Plato's story is often questioned by mainstream media, and there are few brave souls who seek to expose the true nature of the lost city of Atlantis. One of the leading theories is that Atlantis is now in the Mar Adrar Desert in Mauritania. This desert contains a geological formation called the Ricot structure, which many believe to be the sunken city of Atlantis. Atlantis was made by alternating rings of land and water, and it is clear that these rings definitely look like they could be alternating land and water. Now, there are many other similarities between Plato's story and where the Ricot structure is located, but I think one important detail to note is that the Ricot structure is in the middle of the desert. Now, this doesn't play well with the fact that Atlantis sunk into the ocean, but Atlantis allegedly sunk into the ocean over 12,000 years ago. And while there isn't an ocean there now, over 12,000 years ago, there very well could have been a sea there. Now, the ocean levels were much different than they are today, and at the end of the last ice age, which was around 12,000 years ago, so much water would have been added into the ocean that it would have caused massive flooding across most island nations. Most coastal nations experienced a major flood. If we look at the tracks in the sand, it's all facing in one direction like it was pushed by a wave. Many people think that this is from 12,000 years ago when a wave pushed over the city of Atlantis or the Ricot structure and made all the sand push that way. Plato describes both the city itself and the land around it, and both of these details are important to try and decipher where Atlantis is. Now, one notable detail is that there's a mountain range that isn't too high, approximately 50 stadia from the center island. And 50 stadia in kilometers is about 9 1/4 kilometers, which is exactly how far these mountains that aren't very high right here are from the center of the Ricot structure. Another notable description is that the city had a diameter of about 40 kilometers, and the Ricot structure also has a diameter of approximately 40 kilometers. Atlantis supposedly opened up to the sea at its south end, and this is exactly where the sea would have been if the Ricot structure was Atlantis. Could you imagine just seeing a bunch of Atlantean ships going and soldiers coming home from war after colonizing the coasts of Africa? One other important detail is the architecture that was actually found at Atlantis. Now, when Plato describes the buildings that the Atlanteans built, he says that the stone that was used in the work was white, another black, and a third red. Some of their buildings were simple, but in others they put together different stones, varying in the color to please the eye and to be a natural source of delight. Now, the buildings that are even still today built around the Ricot structure are made out of this white, red, and black stone. They can be found everywhere around the Ricot structure, and even in the center of the Ricot structure itself, where the Temple of Poseidon is rumored to have been. One of the biggest questions people that doubt this theory have is that if it is Atlantis, how come we haven't found any archaeological artifacts from there? Well, the truth is that there are many archaeological artifacts that are there that date all the way back to the Neolithic era which is approximately 12,000 to 9,000 years ago.